Ethan Blackwood, a successful businessman, walked through the streets of Manhattan with an invitation to his ex-fiancée, Clara's wedding, burning a hole in his pocket. The invitation was a constant reminder of his pain and resentment, knowing she was marrying another man. Ethan needed to prove that he had moved on, even if it was just a facade. He decided he needed a companion for the wedding, someone who would make a lasting impression. As he walked through the bustling streets, he noticed a homeless woman sitting on a park bench, reading a battered book. What caught his attention was not her disheveled appearance, but the dignity with which she carried herself and the glint of intelligence in her eyes. Impulsively, he approached her and hesitantly made an unexpected proposition. He knew he needed someone who could shock and surprise his ex-fiancée, and this woman seemed perfect for the role. The woman raised her eyes, revealing a face that, despite the marks of time and hardship, still retained an ethereal beauty. "Yes," she responded with a surprisingly melodious voice. Ethan nervously introduced himself, explaining his situation and his unusual proposal. He wanted to hire her to be his date for his ex-fiancée's wedding, offering her a significant amount of money in return. The woman arched an eyebrow, showing a mixture of curiosity and caution in her gaze. "My name is Maggie," she said simply. She listened attentively as Ethan explained his plan, hesitating only for a moment before accepting. She knew she had little to lose and much to gain from this opportunity. Ethan, for his part, felt a mix of relief and, in the days that followed, Ethan began Maggie's transformation. He took her to a high-end beauty salon where her hair was treated and cut, her nails were manicured, and her skin received special treatment. Maggie watched her own transformation in the mirror with a mix of fascination and disbelief. Her hair, once dull and lifeless, now shone with a silky sheen, elegantly framing her face. Her nails, previously broken and battered, were now impeccable. She could hardly believe the change she was witnessing. Meanwhile, Ethan took her to the finest stores in Manhattan, where she tried on dresses that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. Each dress she put on revealed a new facet of her personality, a version of herself she had forgotten existed. The luxurious fabrics and sophisticated designs brought out a confidence in her that had long been buried. Maggie began to feel a renewed sense of self-worth and elegance, something she hadn't felt in years. Ethan watched her with growing admiration. He saw beyond the transformation of her appearance. He saw the spark in her eyes that hinted at a depth and intelligence that intrigued him. He began to respect Maggie not just as a part of his plan, but as a person with her own story and dignity. This unexpected admiration made Ethan question his original motives and the potential consequences of his actions. Despite the external changes, Maggie remained grounded. She knew that this was a temporary role she was playing, but she was determined to make the most of it. Each day, she felt more prepared to face the challenges ahead, including the wedding that loomed large on the horizon. She began to see this not just as a means to an end, but as an opportunity to reclaim a part of herself that she thought was lost forever. During dinner at an exclusive restaurant, Maggie looked at Ethan with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked, setting her coffee cup down on the table. Ethan honestly admitted that at first it was about revenge, but now he wasn't so sure. He explained that maybe it was a chance to do something good, to help someone who truly needed it. This revelation took Maggie by surprise, and she felt a new level of respect for Ethan. Maggie studied Ethan's face, searching for any sign of falsehood, but found only surprising vulnerability. She knew Ethan was also hurting, and that somehow this journey was healing both of them. "You know this won't fill the void Clara left, right?" she said softly. Ethan lowered his gaze, a sad smile on his lips, and replied, "Maybe not, but maybe it can be the start of something new for both of us." This honest exchange created a deeper bond between them, one based on mutual understanding and respect. As the evening progresses, they talked about their past, their hopes, and their fears. Maggie opened up about her life before becoming homeless, revealing that she had once been a successful executive with a bright future ahead of her. Ethan listened intently, his admiration for her growing with every word. He realized that Maggie was not just a part of his plan, but someone who had the potential to change his life in unexpected ways. Their conversation also made Maggie realize that Ethan was more than just a man seeking revenge. He was someone looking for redemption, a way to right the wrongs of his past and find a new purpose. This realization made Maggie more determined to help him, not just as a part of his plan, but as a friend and ally. They both went to bed that night with a sense of hope and a renewed determination to face the challenges ahead together. Finally, the day of the wedding arrived. Maggie was stunning in a sapphire blue silk dress, her confidence growing with each step. She knew she was about to face a test of dignity and strength. Ethan stood by her side, impeccably dressed, feeling a mixture of anxiety and pride. They arrived at the lavish wedding venue, a grand ballroom decorated with Swarovski crystals and exotic flowers, drawing all eyes upon them as they entered. The expressions of surprise and admiration were evident on the faces of the guests. Clara, Ethan's ex-fiancée, looked radiant in her wedding dress, but her expression changed upon seeing Maggie. There was something in Maggie's posture and presence that unsettled Clara. She couldn't place it, but it was clear that Maggie was not just another guest. Ethan felt the tension in the air, but was determined to proceed with his plan. Maggie felt the weight of the stares and whispers as they walked through the room. She maintained her composure, drawing on the dignity and strength she had rediscovered in herself. As they mingled with the guests, Maggie's intelligence and charm began to shine through. People who initially judged her based on her appearance soon found themselves captivated by her conversation and grace. Ethan watched with pride as Maggie held her own among the elite. As the evening progressed, Maggie's presence continued to challenge the preconceived notions of the guests. Clara's discomfort grew, realizing that Maggie was not just a prop in Ethan's scheme, but a formidable woman in her own right. Maggie's poise and intelligence made it clear that she belonged in this world, even if only for a night. This realization began to shift the dynamics of the event, making Ethan's plan take an unexpected turn. The presence of Maggie at the wedding was a shock to everyone, not only because of her stunning appearance, but also because of the confidence with which she carried herself. Clara, used to being the center of attention, now found herself overshadowed by the mysterious woman by Ethan's side. This shift in dynamics created a palpable tension as guests whispered and speculated about Maggie's true identity. Ethan felt a sense of satisfaction seeing Clara's reaction. His plan was working, but more importantly, he was starting to see Maggie as more than just a pawn in his game. Her grace and dignity in the face of judgment and scrutiny impressed him deeply. He realized that Maggie had a strength that was rare and inspiring, something that went beyond her outward transformation. Throughout the evening, Maggie continued to navigate the social minefield with ease. She engaged in conversations about art, literature, and politics, surprising the guests with her knowledge and wit. Clara, observing from a distance, began to feel a mix of jealousy and admiration. She couldn't deny that Maggie had a presence that demanded respect and attention. It became increasingly clear that Ethan had brought someone extraordinary to her wedding. As the night drew to a close, the tension between Maggie and Clara reached a breaking point. Clara approached Maggie, her face a mask of polite curiosity. "So how do you know Ethan?" she asked, her tone dripping with insincerity. Maggie met her gaze steadily and replied, "We've recently become acquaintances. He's been kind enough to help me rediscover a part of myself I thought was lost." The underlying meaning of her words was not lost on Clara, who walked away with a newfound sense of respect and unease. Ethan watched the interaction between Maggie and Clara from across the room, feeling a mixture of triumph and trepidation. His initial plan to use Maggie as a means to make Clara jealous had taken an unexpected turn. He found himself genuinely admiring Maggie's strength and resilience. The more time he spent with her, the more he realized that his plan for revenge was evolving into something far more meaningful. As the night continued, Ethan and Maggie found a quiet corner to talk. "You're doing an amazing job," Ethan said softly, his eyes filled with genuine admiration. I can't thank you enough for going along with this." Maggie smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I'm not just doing this for you, Ethan. I'm doing it for myself, too. This opportunity has reminded me of who I used to be and who I can be again." Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He realized that their partnership was no longer just about revenge. It was about redemption and rediscovery for both of them. "I never expected to find someone like you," Ethan confessed. "You've made me see things differently, and for that, I'm truly grateful." Maggie's smile widened, and for a moment, they shared a silent understanding of the unexpected journey they had embarked on together. As the evening progressed, Ethan's resolve to humiliate Clara waned. He began to see the event as an opportunity for both him and Maggie to prove something to themselves rather than to others. The rich atmosphere of the wedding, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and whispered conversations, seemed almost surreal to Maggie, who had been living on the streets just days before. Ethan found himself questioning his original motives. The connection he felt with Maggie was genuine, and he didn't want to use her pain for his gain anymore. "Maggie, there's something you should know," he said, his voice tinged with guilt. "This started as a plan to get back at Clara, but now it feels different. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want us both to find some peace." Maggie looked at him, her eyes softening. "Ethan, we all have our reasons for doing things. I agreed to this because I needed a chance to prove to myself that I could still be someone, and you've given me that chance." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Whatever happens tonight, let's make it count for something good." As the night wore on, Maggie found herself face to face with James, Clara's new husband. There was something familiar about him that she couldn't quite place. They exchanged pleasantries, and as they spoke, fragments of her past began to surface. James's mannerisms and his voice triggered memories of boardrooms and high-stakes meetings. James seemed equally intrigued by Maggie. "You seem very familiar," he remarked, his eyes narrowing as if trying to place her. Maggie smiled politely, masking her growing unease. "I've had a varied life," she replied enigmatically. "Perhaps our paths have crossed in another context." She excused herself, her mind racing with the realization that James might have been involved in her downfall. Determined to uncover the truth, Maggie discreetly followed James to a quiet corner of the venue. She confronted him, her voice steady but charged with emotion. "James, I remember you now. You were at Global Tech. You were part of the team that framed me and ruined my career." James's face went pale and he glanced around nervously. "Maggie, this isn't the place to discuss this." Ignoring his plea, Maggie pressed on. "You destroyed my life, James. But tonight, I'm taking it back." Her words were filled with a fierce determination that left James visibly shaken. He stammered an apology, but Maggie had already turned on her heel, leaving him to grapple with his guilt and the potential consequences of his past actions. Maggie returned to Ethan, who immediately sensed that something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face. Maggie took a deep breath, steadying herself. "James was involved in the conspiracy that ruined my life," she revealed. "He's the reason I lost everything." Ethan's expression darkened with anger and determination. "We need to expose him," he said firmly. With Ethan's support, Maggie decided it was time to reveal her true identity to the assembled guests. She stepped onto the stage, taking the microphone with a steady hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice clear and unwavering, "my name is Maggie, and many years ago, I was an executive at Global Tech." She paused, allowing the murmurs of surprise to settle. "I was framed for a crime I didn't commit, and it destroyed my career and my life," Maggie continued. "Tonight, I have discovered that James, the groom, was a part of that conspiracy." Gasps filled the room, and all eyes turned to James, who stood frozen in shock. "I've spent years trying to rebuild my life, and tonight I'm reclaiming my dignity." The room fell silent as Maggie's words sank in. Clara looked at James, her face a mask of disbelief and betrayal. Ethan stood by Maggie's side, his presence a silent support. Maggie felt a surge of empowerment. She had finally taken control of her narrative and exposed the truth. The night that began as a plan for revenge had transformed into a moment of justice and redemption. As the guests absorbed Maggie's revelation, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. The shock of her words left an indelible mark on everyone present. Ethan stepped forward, taking the microphone. "Maggie is not only a victim, but a survivor," he said, his voice strong and resolute. "She deserves our respect and our support as she rebuilds her life." Maggie's transformation from a successful executive to a homeless woman had been a long and painful journey. She had endured betrayal, loss, and unimaginable hardship. But standing there in front of the elite of New York society, she felt a sense of triumph and vindication. The people who once judged her now saw her true strength and resilience. Clara, struggling to process the truth about her new husband, approached Maggie. "I had no idea," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry for what you've been through." Maggie looked at her, a mix of empathy and resolve in her eyes. "Clara, you have a choice now," she said gently. "You can either continue with this facade or stand up for what's right." James, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to defend himself. "It was a long time ago, and I was just following orders," he protested. But the damage was done. The guests, once eager to celebrate his marriage, now looked at him with disdain and disappointment. The truth had shattered the illusion of his integrity, and there was no going back. As the evening drew to a close, Maggie felt a profound sense of closure. She had confronted her past, exposed the truth, and reclaimed her dignity. Ethan, standing by her side, felt a newfound respect and admiration for her. Together, they had turned a night of revenge into a moment of redemption and justice. And in doing so, they had forged a bond that would change their lives forever. The room buzzed with the aftermath of Maggie's revelation. As the guests processed the shocking news, one figure emerged from the crowd and approached Maggie and Ethan. It was Mr. Gregory Lang, a well-respected philanthropist and influential businessman in New York. He extended his hand to Maggie, his eyes filled with respect and sympathy. "Your courage is remarkable, Maggie," he said. "I believe you deserve a chance to rebuild your life, and I would like to help." Maggie was taken aback by his offer. "Thank you, Mr. Lang," she replied, her voice shaking slightly with emotion. "I appreciate your support more than you can imagine." Ethan watched the interaction with a sense of pride and relief. He knew that having an ally like Gregory Lang would be instrumental in Maggie's journey to reclaim her life and career. Lang continued, "I have a foundation that supports individuals who have faced unjust circumstances. With your skills and experience, Maggie, I believe you could make a significant impact." The sincerity in his voice and the opportunity he presented gave Maggie a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in years, she felt that her future could be bright again. As the evening progressed, more guests approached Maggie with words of encouragement and offers of support. Clara, now fully understanding the gravity of the situation, announced her intention to postpone the wedding and reevaluate her relationship with James. The news spread quickly, adding to the evening's drama. Maggie felt a mix of vindication and gratitude, knowing that her bravery had not only exposed the truth but also inspired others to take a stand. The days leading up to the wedding had been a whirlwind of activity. Ethan and Maggie spent countless hours preparing for the event, each of them driven by their own motivations and the growing bond between them. They rehearsed their roles meticulously, ensuring that they would present themselves with the utmost confidence and elegance. Ethan's determination to make a statement at the wedding was matched by Maggie's desire to reclaim her dignity. Maggie's transformation was more than just physical. She immersed herself in etiquette lessons, studying the nuances of high society with a keen eye. Her intelligence and quick wit made her a fast learner, and soon she was navigating social interactions with the grace of someone who had never left the world of corporate power. Ethan watched her progress with admiration, recognizing the depth of her resilience and strength. As the wedding day approached, Ethan found himself reflecting on his original intentions. What had started as a plan for revenge had evolved into something far more significant. His respect for Maggie had grown into genuine affection, and he began to question the morality of his scheme. Despite his doubts, He knew that attending the wedding together would be a pivotal moment for both of them. On the morning of the wedding, Ethan and Maggie shared a quiet moment together. "Are you ready for this?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with both anticipation and concern. Maggie looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life," she replied. They both knew that the day ahead would be challenging, but they were united in their resolve to face it together. Maggie's crash course in etiquette had been intense but enlightening. Under the guidance of a seasoned etiquette coach, she learned everything from the proper way to hold a champagne flute to the subtleties of engaging in polite conversation. Maggie's natural intelligence and adaptability made her an exemplary student. She absorbed the lessons with enthusiasm, determined to present herself flawlessly at the wedding. Her coach, Miss Thompson, was impressed with Maggie's progress. "You have a remarkable ability to adapt, Maggie," she said during one of their sessions. "Remember, true elegance comes from confidence and authenticity." Maggie took these words to heart, realizing that her journey was not just about learning the rules of high society, but also about rediscovering her own sense of self-worth and confidence. Ethan noticed the transformation in Maggie. She moved with a newfound grace, and her conversations were filled with charm and wit. He found himself increasingly drawn to her, not just because of her outward changes, but because of the strength and dignity she exuded. "You're incredible," he told her one evening after a particularly rigorous session. "You've come so far in such a short time." Maggie smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Thank you, Ethan, but I couldn't have done it without your support." Their bond had deepened over the weeks of preparation, and Maggie felt a growing affection for Ethan. She appreciated his unwavering belief in her and his willingness to stand by her side. Together they had faced numerous challenges, and their partnership had become a source of strength for both of them. On the day of the wedding, Maggie's final transformation took place. She donned a stunning sapphire blue silk dress that accentuated her natural beauty and elegance. Her hair, styled in soft waves, framed her face perfectly, and her makeup highlighted her striking features. As she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. It was a moment of profound realization. She had reclaimed a part of herself that she thought was lost forever. Ethan, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, watched as Maggie made her final preparations. He was struck by her beauty and the confidence she exuded. "You look absolutely breathtaking," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Maggie turned to him, a smile playing on her lips. "Thank you, Ethan. I feel like I'm finally ready to face this." As they prepared to leave for the wedding, Ethan took a moment to appreciate the journey they had been on together. Maggie's transformation was a testament to her inner strength and resilience. He felt a surge of pride and affection for her, knowing that she had come so far from the woman he had met on that park bench. "Whatever happens today, just remember how incredible you are," he told her. Maggie nodded, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. "I couldn't have done it without you, Ethan. Thank you for believing in me." As they walked out the door, arm in arm, they both felt a sense of anticipation. The wedding would be a turning point, not just for their plan, but for their lives. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their shared determination and newfound bond. As Ethan and Maggie arrived at the wedding venue, the opulence of the setting was breathtaking. The grand ballroom was decorated with shimmering crystals, elegant floral arrangements, and soft, ambient lighting. It was a fitting stage for the dramatic events that were about to unfold. Ethan couldn't help but feel a swell of pride as he walked in with Maggie by his side, knowing how far they had both come. Guests turned to stare as they entered, whispers spreading through the room like wildfire. Maggie held her head high, her confidence unshaken by the scrutinizing gazes. Ethan admired her poise and grace. She was no longer just a part of his plan. She had become someone he deeply respected and cared for. The transformation she had undergone was remarkable, but it was her inner strength that truly captivated him. Throughout the evening, Ethan found himself increasingly impressed by Maggie. She navigated the social minefield with ease, engaging in conversations about art, politics, and literature with an effortless charm. Her intelligence and wit won over even the most skeptical guests. Ethan realized that his initial plan to make Clara jealous had evolved into something far more meaningful. Maggie's presence was not just a statement, it was a testament to her resilience and dignity. As the night progressed, Ethan's respect for Maggie grew into something deeper. He found himself drawn to her not just because of her beauty and intelligence, but because of the strength of character she displayed. She had faced unimaginable hardship and emerged stronger for it. In Maggie, Ethan saw a reflection of his own struggles and a partner who could stand by his side through any challenge. Their connection was undeniable, and he knew that whatever happened next, they would face it together. The day of the wedding had arrived, bringing with it a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Ethan and Maggie prepared themselves with meticulous attention to detail. They knew that their presence at the wedding would be scrutinized, and they wanted to make sure they were ready for anything. The stakes were high, but their resolve was unwavering. This was their moment to make a statement, both to themselves and to the world. Maggie looked stunning in her sapphire blue dress, her confidence radiating with every step she took. Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as he escorted her into the grand ballroom. The reaction from the guests was immediate. Whispers and murmurs filled the room as people took in the sight of the mysterious woman by Ethan's side. Clara, standing at the center of the celebration, looked visibly taken aback. As they mingled with the guests, Maggie's grace and charm shone through. She engaged in conversations effortlessly, her knowledge and wit impressing everyone she spoke to. Ethan watched with admiration, knowing that Maggie was not just playing a role. She was reclaiming her place in the world. The transformation was complete, and it was clear that Maggie belonged in this setting, despite her humble beginnings. The atmosphere in the room was charged with anticipation. Clara's unease was palpable as she observed Maggie's interactions with the guests. It was clear that Maggie was not just a prop in Ethan's scheme, but a formidable woman in her own right. Ethan felt a surge of pride as he watched Maggie navigate the social landscape with ease. She had come a long way from the woman he had met on that park bench, and he was grateful to have her by his side. As the formal proceedings of the wedding began, Ethan and Maggie made their way to their seats, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. The grand entrance they made was the talk of the evening, with guests speculating about Maggie's identity and her connection to Ethan. Clara's eyes followed them, a mix of jealousy and curiosity evident in her gaze. The atmosphere was electric, with everyone eager to see how the night would unfold. Maggie maintained her composure, her confidence unshaken by the stares and whispers. She knew that this was her moment to shine, to prove to herself and to others that she was more than her circumstances. As they took their seats, Ethan leaned over and whispered, "You're doing amazing, Maggie. Just remember, we're in this together." Maggie nodded, feeling a surge of reassurance from his words. Throughout the ceremony, Maggie's presence continued to draw attention. She moved with an elegance and grace that captivated everyone around her. Clara, struggling to maintain her composure, found it increasingly difficult to focus on the celebration. Her unease grew as she watched Ethan and Maggie together, their connection evident to all. It was clear that Maggie's presence had unsettled the carefully curated image Clara had constructed. As the night wore on, the tension in the room became palpable. The guests were torn between their curiosity about Maggie and their loyalty to Clara. Ethan could feel the shift in dynamics, knowing that their presence had already made a significant impact. He glanced at Maggie, who met his gaze with a reassuring smile. They both knew that the evening was far from over and that the real challenge was yet to come. Clara's jealousy was becoming more apparent as the night progressed. She had hoped her wedding would be a perfect showcase of her new life, but Maggie's presence had thrown her off balance. Clara couldn't help but feel threatened by the mysterious woman who had captured everyone's attention, including Ethan's. Her frustration grew as she watched Maggie interact effortlessly with the guests, earning their admiration and respect. Clara decided to confront Maggie, hoping to regain some control over the situation. She approached Maggie with a forced smile, her eyes betraying her true emotions. "So how do you know Ethan?" Clara asked, her voice dripping with insincerity. Maggie met her gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. "We've recently become acquaintances," Maggie replied. "He's been kind enough to help me rediscover a part of myself I thought was lost." The underlying meaning of Maggie's words was not lost on Clara. She felt a surge of anger and jealousy, realizing that Maggie was not just a pawn in Ethan's scheme, but a formidable woman in her own right. Clara's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack, and she struggled to maintain her composure. "Well, I hope you enjoy the evening," Clara said, her voice strained. "It's certainly been eventful." As Clara walked away, Maggie couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. She had stood her ground and refused to be intimidated by Clara's jealousy. Ethan watched the interaction from a distance, feeling a mix of pride and concern. He knew that Clara's jealousy could lead to unpredictable consequences, and he was determined to protect Maggie from any fallout. Together, they braced themselves for whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their resolve to face them head-on. As the reception continued, the atmosphere in the room remained tense. The guests were buzzing with speculation about Maggie, and Clara's obvious discomfort only fueled the intrigue. Maggie, however, handled the scrutiny with poise, engaging in conversations and charming everyone she met. She felt a newfound sense of empowerment, knowing she had taken control of her narrative. At one point, Ethan and Maggie found themselves in a conversation with a group of influential business people. One of them, a seasoned executive named Mr. Harrington, was particularly taken with Maggie. "You have an impressive knowledge of the industry," he remarked. "It's rare to meet someone so well-versed in such diverse topics." Maggie smiled, appreciating the compliment. "Thank you, Mr. Harrington. I've always had a passion for learning and staying informed." As the evening wore on, Ethan noticed James becoming increasingly agitated. The revelations about Maggie had clearly unsettled him, and he seemed on edge. Sensing an opportunity, Ethan decided it was time to confront James and get to the bottom of his involvement in Maggie's downfall. He approached James, who was standing alone by the bar, nursing a drink. "James, we need to talk," Ethan said firmly. James looked up, his expression wary. "About what?" he asked, his voice tinged with defensiveness. "About Maggie and what you did to her," Ethan replied, his tone unwavering. James's face paled, and he glanced around nervously. "This isn't the place for that," he muttered. "Oh, I think it is," Ethan countered. "You've hidden behind your lies for too long. It's time to face the truth." The confrontation drew the attention of nearby guests, adding to the evening's tension. Ethan's confrontation with James quickly became the focal point of the evening. Guests turned their attention to the heated exchange, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. James tried to deflect, but Ethan's determination and the weight of Maggie's story left him with nowhere to hide. "You were part of the conspiracy that ruined Maggie's life," Ethan said, his voice loud enough for others to hear. "It's time you took responsibility for your actions." James's attempt to maintain his composure failed as the truth began to unravel. "I was following orders," he stammered, his voice shaking. "I didn't have a choice." Ethan shook his head, his expression filled with disdain. "There's always a choice, James. You chose to protect yourself at the expense of an innocent person's life. That's not something you can excuse or ignore." Maggie, sensing that the moment of truth had arrived, stepped forward. "James, you need to come clean," she said, her voice steady and resolute. "You need to admit what you did and face the consequences." Her words, filled with both pain and strength, cut through the tension like a knife. The guests, now fully invested in the drama, watched with bated breath. James looked around, realizing that there was no escape. The weight of his guilt was palpable, and the eyes of the room bore down on him. "All right," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I was involved. I helped frame Maggie. But it wasn't just me. There were others, powerful people, who orchestrated the whole thing." His admission sent shockwaves through the room, confirming what many had suspected. but never dared to say out loud. With James's confession hanging in the air, the atmosphere in the room grew even more charged. Ethan stepped back, his mission partially accomplished, but with a sense that there was still more to uncover. He turned to Maggie, his eyes filled with determination. "We've come this far, Maggie. We need to see this through to the end," he said. Maggie nodded, her resolve unwavering. She knew that exposing the full truth was the only way to truly reclaim her life. As the evening continued, Ethan and Maggie found themselves surrounded by a mix of supporters and skeptics. Some guests expressed their admiration for Maggie's courage, while others remained wary, unsure of the full story. Clara, meanwhile, was grappling with the revelation about James and the impact it would have on her life. She approached Ethan, her expression a mix of anger and confusion. "Why did you bring her here?" she demanded. "What were you trying to prove?" Ethan took a deep breath, ready to confront Clara with his true motives. "At first it was about revenge," he admitted. "I wanted to show you that I had moved on, that I didn't need you. But then I met Maggie and everything changed. I realized that this wasn't just about me. It was about giving her a chance to reclaim her dignity and expose the truth." Clara looked at him, her anger slowly giving way to understanding. "And what about us?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head, his expression filled with regret. "Clara, we had our time, but it's over. I've found something real with Maggie, something built on honesty and respect." "I hope you can find that too," Clara nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I just want you to be happy," she whispered. The conversation, though painful, provided a sense of closure for both of them. Clara walked away, leaving Ethan and Maggie to face the next steps of their journey together. Feeling the need to address the gathered guests, Maggie decided to take the stage. She had spent years living in the shadows, and now was her moment to step into the light. With Ethan by her side, she took the microphone, her heart pounding, but her resolve firm. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady and clear, "tonight, many of you have learned about my past and the injustices I've faced. I want to thank Ethan for giving me the opportunity to tell my story." The room fell silent as Maggie continued. "I was once an executive at Global Tech, dedicated to my work and my colleagues. But when I uncovered a conspiracy within the company, I was framed and my life was destroyed. I lost everything: my career, my home, my dignity. For years I struggled to survive, but tonight I stand before you reclaiming my life and my voice." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom were moved by her bravery. Maggie took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I want to thank those of you who have shown me kindness and support. It's not easy to face the truth, but it's necessary. We must hold those in power accountable for their actions and ensure that justice is served. I stand here not just for myself, but for everyone who has been wronged and silenced." The room erupted in applause, a show of solidarity and respect for Maggie's courage. As Maggie stepped down from the stage, she felt a sense of liberation she hadn't experienced in years. Ethan embraced her, his eyes filled with pride and admiration. "You were incredible," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Maggie smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Together, they had faced the truth and emerged stronger. The road ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it, united in their quest for justice and redemption. The guests were deeply moved by Maggie's powerful speech. Whispers of admiration and respect spread through the room as people began to understand the gravity of what she had endured and overcome. The mood shifted from shock and curiosity to one of support and solidarity. Many guests approached Maggie, expressing their support and offering help. Ethan stood by her side, his heart swelling with pride. One guest, a prominent attorney named Miss Blake, was particularly impressed. "Maggie, your story is not only inspiring, but also a call to action," she said. "If you're willing, I'd like to represent you in a legal battle against those who wronged you. It's time they face the consequences of their actions." Maggie was taken aback by the offer, but felt a surge of hope. "Thank you, Miss Blake. I would be grateful for your help," she replied, feeling that justice was finally within reach. The night continued, and Maggie found herself surrounded by a growing circle of allies. Gregory Lang, the philanthropist, approached her again. Maggie, your courage has touched many of us tonight. My foundation is ready to support you in any way possible, whether it's legal aid, financial support, or professional opportunities, he said earnestly. Maggie felt overwhelmed by the outpouring of support and gratitude. She realized that her story had the power to bring about real change. Meanwhile, Clara observed the scene from a distance. She was grappling with her own feelings of guilt and responsibility. Seeing the support Maggie received and the truth about James's involvement in the conspiracy, Clara knew she had to make a decision about her future. She approached Maggie, her expression a mix of remorse and determination. Maggie, I want to help too, Clara said. I had no idea about James's actions, and I want to make things right. Clara's realization was a turning point. She had been so focused on her own life and ambitions that she had overlooked the injustices happening around her. Seeing Maggie's courage and the support she garnered made Clara reflect on her own values and priorities. She approached Ethan and Maggie with sincerity. I was blind to what was happening right under my nose, she admitted. I want to help in any way I can. Maggie appreciated Clara's offer, recognizing the genuine remorse in her eyes. Thank you, Clara. It's never too late to do the right thing, Maggie said softly. The two women shared a moment of mutual understanding and respect. Clara's willingness to stand up against the corruption that had ruined Maggie's life marked the beginning of a new chapter in their intertwined stories. With Clara's support, the momentum for justice continued to build. She used her connections to gather more evidence against those involved in the conspiracy, including James. Clara's transformation from a self-absorbed socialite to an advocate for justice was profound. She realized that true fulfillment came from standing up for what was right, not from maintaining appearances. As the evening drew to a close, Clara announced her intention to cancel the wedding and end her relationship with James. The guests were stunned by her decision, but Clara stood firm. I cannot marry a man who has caused so much pain and suffering, she declared. I need to take a stand for justice and integrity. Her announcement was met with applause, and Clara felt a sense of liberation and purpose. With Clara's public declaration and support, the focus shifted back to James and his involvement in the conspiracy. James, realizing that his lies had been exposed, attempted to leave the venue. However, he was quickly intercepted by Gregory Lang and Miss Blake. You have a lot to answer for, James, Miss Blake said sternly. You won't be able to escape the consequences of your actions this time. James, cornered and desperate, finally broke down. All right, I admit it, he confessed, his voice trembling. I was part of the conspiracy to frame Maggie, but I wasn't acting alone. There were others higher up who orchestrated everything. They used me as a pawn to cover their tracks. His confession sent shockwaves through the room, confirming the depth of the corruption that had destroyed Maggie's life. Miss Blake seized the opportunity to question James further. Who were these higher-ups? We need names, she demanded. James hesitated, clearly fearing the repercussions of revealing the truth. But with nowhere left to turn, he began to name those involved in the conspiracy, implicating several powerful figures in the corporate world. The guests listened in stunned silence as the extent of the corruption was revealed. Maggie and Ethan stood together, their determination unwavering. They knew that bringing down the corrupt network would be a long and challenging battle, but they were ready to face it together. With the support of Clara, Gregory Lang, Miss Blake, and the other guests who had rallied around them, they felt empowered to pursue justice. The night that began as a plan for revenge had transformed into a mission for truth and redemption. With James's full confession, the magnitude of the corporate conspiracy became clear. The powerful figures he named were implicated in a web of deceit and corruption that extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. The scandal had ramifications for many industries and had destroyed countless lives. But now, with the truth finally exposed, there was a chance to hold those responsible accountable. Miss Blake, true to her word, began to organize a legal team to take on the case. This is going to be a long fight, but we have the truth on our side, she told Maggie and Ethan. With the evidence we've gathered and the testimonies we have, we can bring these people to justice. Maggie felt a sense of vindication and hope. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, she felt that justice was within reach. Ethan, too, felt a renewed sense of purpose. His initial plan for revenge had evolved into something far more significant. He was determined to support Maggie and ensure that those who had wronged her faced the consequences of their actions. "We'll fight this together," he promised Maggie. "No matter how long it takes, we'll see this through." Maggie nodded, grateful for Ethan's unwavering support and their shared resolve. As the night came to an end, the atmosphere was charged with a sense of possibility and justice. The guests left the venue knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. Ethan and Maggie stood together, looking out at the city lights, their hearts filled with hope and determination. They had faced their past and emerged stronger. Now they were ready to take on the future, united in their quest for truth and redemption. In the days following the wedding, Ethan and Maggie's bond grew even stronger. They spent countless hours working with Miss Blake and her legal team, gathering evidence and preparing for the legal battles ahead. Their shared mission for justice brought them closer, forging a partnership built on mutual respect and admiration. They knew that the road ahead would be tough, but they were ready to face it together. Ethan's respect for Maggie deepened with each passing day. He admired her resilience and strength, qualities that had drawn him to her from the beginning. Maggie, in turn, was grateful for Ethan's unwavering support and his belief in her. They had both transformed through their journey, finding a renewed sense of purpose and connection. Their relationship had evolved from a partnership of convenience to a deep and meaningful bond. As they worked together, they also took time to reflect on their personal journeys. Maggie shared more about her past, revealing the struggles and triumphs that had shaped her. Ethan opened up about his own experiences, including his failed relationship with Clara and his search for redemption. Through these conversations, they found solace and understanding in each other's stories. One evening, as they sat on Ethan's balcony overlooking the city, Maggie turned to him with a thoughtful expression. "Ethan, I never imagined that this journey would lead me to someone like you," she said softly. "You've given me a chance to reclaim my life, and for that, I'm truly grateful." Ethan took her hand, his eyes filled with affection. "Maggie, you've shown me what true strength looks like. I'm honored to be by your side." In that moment, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The legal battle against the corrupt executives and companies involved in the conspiracy was intense and grueling. Ethan, Maggie, and their allies worked tirelessly to build a strong case, gathering evidence and preparing for court. The media quickly picked up on the story, and it became a national sensation. Maggie's transformation from a homeless woman to a formidable advocate for justice captivated the public's imagination. The trial was a roller coaster of emotions. Maggie testified with courage and conviction, detailing the conspiracy that had destroyed her life. Her testimony was supported by the evidence Miss Blake and her team had meticulously gathered. Ethan also took the stand, revealing his own experiences and the impact of the conspiracy on his life and business. Their combined efforts painted a damning picture of the corruption that had pervaded the corporate world. As the trial progressed, the defense tried to discredit Maggie and Ethan, but their integrity and determination shone through. The public rallied behind them, and their story became a symbol of resilience and justice. The powerful executives who had once seemed untouchable were now facing the consequences of their actions. The courtroom became a battleground for truth and accountability. Finally, after weeks of intense legal proceedings, the verdict was announced. The jury found the defendants guilty of all charges, and they were sentenced to significant prison terms. The courtroom erupted in applause, and Maggie felt a surge of relief and triumph. Justice had been served. She had reclaimed her life and exposed the truth. Ethan embraced her, tears of joy in his eyes. "We did it, Maggie. We finally did it," he said. Maggie nodded, feeling a profound sense of closure and hope for the future. With the trial behind them, Ethan and Maggie began to focus on their future. They had faced immense challenges and emerged stronger, united by their shared experiences and determination. They decided to use their newfound platform to advocate for others who had been wronged and to work towards creating a more just and equitable world. Their journey had transformed them both, and they were ready to make a lasting impact. Maggie received numerous job offers and opportunities to speak about her experiences. She decided to join Gregory Lang's foundation, using her skills and knowledge to help others who had faced similar injustices. Ethan continued to support her, using his resources and connections to further their cause. Together, they became a powerful force for change, inspiring others with their story of resilience and redemption. As they settled into their new roles, Ethan and Maggie also took time to nurture their personal relationship. They found joy in the simple moments of life, cherishing the bond they had forged through their trials. Their love had grown deeper, built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, hand in hand. One evening, as they watched the sunset from their favorite spot on Ethan's balcony, Maggie turned to him with a smile. "Ethan, I never imagined that my life would take this path," she said, "but I'm grateful for every moment because it led me to you." Ethan squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with love. "Maggie, you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. I'm excited for our future together." As the sun dipped below the horizon, they looked forward to a future filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. Ethan and Maggie stood together, looking out over the city that had been the backdrop to their incredible journey. The skyline was illuminated by the setting sun, casting a golden glow over the buildings and streets. It was a moment of reflection and anticipation, a chance to look back on how far they had come and to dream about what lay ahead. Their story had inspired many, becoming a beacon of hope and resilience. They had faced their past with courage and had emerged stronger, united by their shared mission for justice. The challenges they had overcome had forged an unbreakable bond between them, one that would guide them through whatever the future held. Maggie felt a sense of peace and fulfillment she hadn't known in years. She had reclaimed her life and found a partner who believed in her and supported her unconditionally. "Ethan, we've been through so much together," she said softly. "I'm ready to face whatever comes next with you by my side." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with love and pride. "Maggie, together we can achieve anything. Our future is bright, and I can't wait to see where it takes us." As they embraced, the city lights began to twinkle, signaling the start of a new chapter in their lives. They had transformed from two individuals seeking redemption to a powerful team ready to make a difference in the world. Their journey was far from over, but they were ready to face it together with love, courage, and an unwavering commitment to justice. The night sky enveloped them, filled with stars and infinite possibilities. Ethan and Maggie stood hand in hand, knowing that the future awaited them with open arms. They had turned their pain into purpose, their struggles into strength, and their story into a testament to the power of resilience and love. And so, under the vast expanse of the New York sky, they stepped forward into their new beginning, ready to embrace whatever the future had in store.